This video is documenting the prediction that the San Francisco 49ers will win this year's Super Bowl that will be played in San Francisco on February 8th, 2026. The date that this video is posted on the social media platform you are watching it on proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this time-stamped email and forensic notes PDF document. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. I am also predicting that the Denver Broncos will win this year's AFC Championship game and then lose to the San Francisco 49ers in this year's Super Bowl in 2026. This email here documents this prediction that is being made ahead of time. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward this to you. All right, welcome. This video is predicting that the San Francisco 49ers will win this year's Super Bowl on February 8th, 2026, and they will be playing the Denver Broncos. This video is currently being recorded prior to the second week of the playoffs. In other words, today is January 15th, and the playoffs have only been through one weekend, the wild card weekend, the first initial weekend of the playoffs. There are still, I believe, 8 teams remaining in the hunt for the Super Bowl trophy. Okay, so the playoffs will resume this weekend on the 17th and 18th of January. Today is the 15th. So this prediction is being made ahead of time. Now, currently, the odds in the sports betting world that the San Francisco 49ers will win this year's Super Bowl are 20 or 21 to 1. And the odds that the Denver Broncos will win the AFC Championship and be the team representing the AFC Conference in the Super Bowl are 2.6 to 1. Okay? So when we combined these odds, if I recall, to have a Super Bowl lineup where the Broncos play the 49ers and the 49ers win, the odds are 50 to 1. Okay? That's from basic finite math, if I recall correctly. So 50 to 1 are the odds. Now, the thing is, this prediction is from God. And, of course, the agnostic atheist will say, well, you know, there was a possibility that the 49ers would play the Broncos and then win. And they would be correct. That is a possibility. Even though the odds are 50 to 1, it's according to the sports betting odds anyway, that's a possibility. And so 50 to 1 is not out of the question, obviously. What is out of the question, and what will prove beyond a doubt that this prediction is from God, are the reasons that I'll be explaining in this video and have explained in the other videos. Because the reasonings that I'll be giving, the explanation for how I know this ahead of time, as you will see, could not have been concocted in the imagination of a human being. No one is that creative. It's very clear. Just stay tuned. You'll see. There's no way that these explanations are not from God. And therefore, it'll prove that this prediction is from God. This 50 to 1 odds lineup of the Super Bowl. To conclude otherwise makes you a fool. It's completely irrational, and you will be a fool to continue with the religion of agnostic atheism after this prediction. Okay, and again, it's not simply the odds of this happening, but the reasons. And you are a fool to disagree with the reasons and conclude that this is arbitrary, not very clear, and not divine from the imagination of a human being. You are an idiot. Sorry, I'll just say fool. I'll just leave it at that. If you conclude that this is just a coincidence and that this was made up. So let's get into it. And by the way, I emphasize that because that's the whole purpose of this video, right? It's to prove the righteous Christian God of the Christian Bible to be the one true God. That's the purpose of this. It is one of the purposes of this prediction. Now, the post date that this video was posted, that you were watching on the social media platform you were watching it on, proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this time-stamped email here. In other words, these reasons that I'll be giving date back to December 10th in terms of recording them. This is long before the playoffs began, before the end of the season. Okay? So December 10th, as you can see. Okay, December 10th. Now, this video is going to be epic because God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel, is an infinite web. I say infinite in a way because the signs interconnect with each other, and one can take an infinite number of pathways through the signs to connect them. And the thing is, the full intended meaning of God's prophetic signs cannot be fully or properly understood without their context and connections with the other prophetic signs. This is something that's not appreciated by many of the watchers who are interested in prophetic signs. And that's also why the vast majority of prophetic signs have been completely missed. Anyway, it's through these connections that God is able to communicate this information that wouldn't otherwise be able to be communicated through the patterns and connections. And so what we have, what I also want to say here is that this video will be epic, and I am considering dividing it into 3 parts because it's just so long. There's just so much that it just connects to so many different things. And as is always the case, it's not really possible to put a title on the video even. Sometimes it is, because there's maybe a little bit of a theme, but often you just got to pick one thing. Like I could pick Philip Rivers here, this player, but it's just about so much more than Philip Rivers. That's really not even, like, you wouldn't even expect to be related to Philip Rivers. For example, the death of the actress Bardot, the French actress, what's her name? I forget her first name now. Because, it was like 2 weeks ago that sign that came up, and God's signs these days are like a fire hose, and I can't remember everything. There's just so much, even though that day was all about Brigitte Bardot. See, there you go. That's her name. All right. So, how is Philip Rivers? Well, he plays for the Colts, and she's the harlot who rides the beast in Revelation chapter 17, and on and on. But I'll get to that. It'll be so amazing. These videos will be mind-blowing, and make sure you watch all 3 if I do divide it up into 3 parts. Okay, and so let's begin this process of building slowly on the information, because that's what will happen here. I'll continue to pile on new insight that's relevant to the insight that had just been explained. In other words, you cannot skip parts of the video. The wise person will recognize when the prediction comes to pass that they need to watch every minute of every video on this channel. The 44-year-old is returning to the NFL after 4 years. Okay, so the big story, one of the highlights of this year's season, was the return of Philip Rivers, this quarterback who was 44 years old. He had been retired for 4 years. And so it's an amazing story in itself, but God has used it as a prophetic sign. The player's name is Philip Rivers. He is known for having 10 children. He returned to the NFL for practice with the Colts 10 days before December 19th. Now I'm going to skip this because, well, December 19th was a date that God was pointing to ahead of time, and so much happened on that date. And I'm not going to make this video about what happened on December 19th. So let's just skip this. So he was born in Alabama. God is using Alabama to hint at Obama. Alabama has a white flag with a big red X on it because the mark of the Antichrist in God's signs is symbolized by an X. And the color is red because the mark of the Antichrist affects one's blood. Obama is the Antichrist who will enforce the mark of the Antichrist. Also, Alabama is the 22nd state. And the mark of the Antichrist is symbolized by the number 22 in God's prophetic signs. It seems as if Rivers will be the starting quarterback against the Seattle Seahawks. This was a few days after he returned on December 9th. Okay, and he did end up starting this game on December 14th against the Seahawks, which, by the way, is the Space Needle team. Oh, I'm getting to that. Okay, so Alabama hints at Obama. And it's the 22nd state with the red flag equals the mark. And he will return in a game in Seattle, which is near the Space Needle, as in the transhumanism mark of the Antichrist needle, in the 42nd state, because the number 42 symbolizes the period of the Antichrist king in Bible prophecy. This is in King County. And Elvis, the king of rock, died at the age of 42. And he famously took the injection before he performed on stage at the Ed Sullivan Show. And he also filmed the movie. It happened at the World's Fair. The Space Needle opened for the World's Fair. So he was in Seattle, in other words, the king. He was in King County. He died at 42, 42nd state. Okay, you get the idea. Now, his taking of the needle for the polio thing was instrumental in the history of vaccines. It radically changed the baby boomers' perceptions of vaccines, and had it not been for Elvis, the history would have been different. Rivers will start at the age of 44, and this was 4 years after his retirement. The 4 times 4th prime number of years after the last American on the moon. Okay. Rivers' return on December 14th will be 1,133 days before the return of Obama. 1,133 hints at 3 times 110th semi-prime number. It is also the 3 times 110th semi-prime number. And that gives us a 3 and 11, which symbolizes the mark of the Antichrist. Why? Because Joseph was the 11th son of the 3rd patriarch, and COVID Day was March 11th, 2020. And on the 1-year anniversary, Joe Biden gave his first address to the public after he was installed in the White House, and it was his big vaccine speech. And Joseph hints at the 3rd patriarch's 11th son, Joseph, in the Bible. Okay, here we go. Rivers will return at the age of 44 after 4 years, exactly 40 plus 40 months after Woods' Masters comeback. So this return of Rivers at the age of 44 is hinting at the return of Barack Obama, the 44th president, right? But we have confirmation of this because Woods is symbolic of also Barack Obama, Woods being the first black person to win the Masters. And that, and his comeback at the Masters years later, was the 23rd prime number Masters, the 83rd Masters, and God pairs 23 and 44. And so Rivers' return after 4 years was exactly 40 plus 40 months after Woods' comeback in the 23rd Masters, 23rd prime number Masters. 23 and 44 are paired together because the 44th president is the basketball president who wore jersey number 23 in high school. And this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works. It works in the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And if we think about it, one simple way in which God would provide a second witness for us is through pairing certain numbers together, such as 23 and 44. And I know this because I've been studying his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections from morning until night for more than full-time hours for more than 7 years. Now, the comeback at the Masters was the same day in the Hebrew calendar as Nisan 10, on which Michelle Obama was on the river during the Notre Dame Cathedral fire. She was on top of the riverboat sipping a glass of wine, and in the reflection of the wine and the iconic image is the reflection of the burning cathedral. Her boat was redirected because of the fire. She was on the boat because her boat was chartered to promote her book, Becoming. She will become the Queen of America. Hence the Notre Dame Cathedral fire. Anyway, that was the same day in the Hebrew calendar as the comeback of Woods, which hinted the comeback of the Obamas. It was on Nisan 10 that the Israelites crossed the Jordan River. And she was on the river on that day, Nisan 10. December 14th, 2025 will be 12 months and 7 days after the date 12/7, when God's trumpet, attended the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral on the river. Okay, and again, 12/14 is the date that Rivers made his comeback. Okay, and Trump was on the river at the Notre Dame, because the Notre Dame Cathedral is on an island in the middle of the Paris River. Okay, I've been there. I was handing out flyers outside and inside the Notre Dame Cathedral when I wasn't supposed to be doing that. Anyway, there's lots to be said. Oh, the Notre Dame Cathedral is known for its facade of kings. Trump is God's King Jehu and King Cyrus, but King Jehu, one of the Israelite kings, that's on the facade of kings. Anyway, the facade of kings also had their heads decapitated during the revolution, and it is also predicted that Trump will be assassinated by the revolutionaries, the radical left, and their sycophant followers. December 14th, 2025, Rivers' comeback at 44 will be exactly 4 plus 4 weeks after the heist at the Louvre Museum on the Paris River. Do you see? Do you see how amazing this is? Okay. Again, December 14th will also be the 4 times 4th prime number of years after the return. His return will be 4 times 4th semi-prime number. 4 times 4th prime number of years, 53 years after the return trip home when the last American departed the moon, which was symbolic of America's departure from Christ, because the moon symbolizes Christ. It is a giant rock. In the Bible, rock is symbolism for Jesus. The sun is symbolizing God the Father, and its light is too bright for us to gaze at, but we can gaze at the sun's light reflected off of the moon. In the Bible, watching for the timing of the Lord's return, watching for the timing of the moon is symbolic of watching for the timing of the Lord's return through prophetic signs, including moon signs. Rivers' return on December 14th will be 1,133 days to the return of Obama on January 20th, 2029. And as I mentioned, this is the 3 times 110th semi-prime number. Rivers' return for practice on December 9th, the 3 times 111th semi-prime number, or 303rd semi-prime number days, which is 1,138 days, before Michelle was on the river. Sorry, it should be after Michelle was on the river. And will return with Barack for his 3rd term. 3 times 110, or 3 times 111, hints at the 3rd patriarch's 11th son, who became the ruler of the civilization over the Nile, the river Nile Delta. Philip Rivers who has returned at age 44 after 4 years, was born 40 plus 40 days after Simon and Garfunkel returned as a duo at the reunion concert in Central Park in Manhattan, in between the Hudson and East Rivers. This 40 plus 40 days is also 3 months and 11 days. He was also born exactly 4 plus 4 plus 4 months after John Lennon was shot next to Central Park, which was 9 months and 11 days before the reunion concert of Simon and Garfunkel in Central Park. This confirms that Rivers' 10 children hint at adding 10 days from Rivers' return to practice to reach the date Simon is predicted to fall and injure his head. Well, December 19th was in fact completely correct, 100% correct. This analysis here is 100% correct, because we knew that God was pointing to this date for Paul Simon ahead of time, and we had the clear and relevant Paul Simon signs that we expected in advance of the date. And this is how God's big picture of signs works. We don't necessarily know if the date is going to actually be the end of the trail. Anyway, that's another subject, because there's no not being the end of the trail with the Super Bowl prediction. But anyway, on December 19th, Paul Simon, it was announced he would receive the Lifetime Award for the Grammy Award, and that was not possible to have been known ahead of time. Also, among many other things that related to Paul Simon, we had the boxing match. The number one news story on the Drudge Report was the boxing match between Jake Paul. Paul Simon is known for his song, The Boxer. Boxing is about punching someone in the head, causing them to fall onto the mat. It was predicted that Paul Simon would fall on this date and injure his head. Anyway, the Paul Simon videos explain why that's important, why he will injure his head and why he will fall. Anyway, Paul Simon opened cold the first broadcast of Saturday Night Live after 9/11 with the performance of The Boxer. Simon sang about the Mississippi River on his album The Graceland, and the cover of the album is a man riding a horse. Rivers is returning to play for the team named after horses, the Colts. The eclipse on April 8th, 2024, that went over America, passed over Wimberley, Texas, where Paul Simon lives, and over Indianapolis, where the Colts play. By the way, if you're wondering why I'm talking so softly, it's because what I'm attempting to do here is a true marathon. This information is just so overwhelming. There's so much of it. And if I'm going to be able to speak it into the microphone, which is going to take quite a number of hours, I'm going to have to pace myself, and that's why I'm talking so softly. Okay? So, 44 years after Rivers' last NFL game was exactly 1,800 days before he played the 42nd state team in the 42nd state near the Space Needle in King County. Prior to the game, he had 3 practices. 1,800 divided by 3 is 600. In other words, 1,800 is 600 plus 600 plus 600, which is 666, the number of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. He played for the Colts, Rivers did, as a quarterback, which hints at the most famous quarterback for the Colts of all time, player number 18, 6 plus 6 plus 6, as in 1,800 days. This quarterback was famous for shouting the word Omaha before the beginning of each play, which hinted at Obama. His number was 666, and this was identifying before each and every play of this guy that the Antichrist is Obama. Which is why the Colts played the Bears. When he won his Super Bowl, he played the Bears, Chicago, where Obama is from. By the way, it occurred to me this morning that I think the winner of the 2027 Super Bowl will be the Chicago Bears. That'll make sense too. And I didn't realize this at first, but it would make sense because Chicago is the city that represents Obama in God's signs. And San Francisco is the city that represents Pope Francis, the first of the two antichrists, because there are two in Bible prophecy. And they are in that chronological order. And so San Francisco followed by Chicago. Anyway, I'll get to that at some point in the future, the prediction video for the Chicago win of next year's Super Bowl. December 14th, 2025. I forget what this is talking about here. I really don't know. Okay, this must be talking about the Bondi Beach shooting. Yep, this was the day of the Bondi Beach shooting. And the shooting was on a bridge. Okay, which in God's signs is the same symbolism as a door through which the demons will cross over or through into the earthly realm from the bottomless pit. And the fourth letter of the Hebrew alphabet is the symbol for a door. Anyway, it was demonic. Muslims that do this sort of thing are demonically possessed or influenced. And that's why the shooting was from a bridge. And it was 4 times 4 deaths, which since the 44th president, and in God's signs, shots, shootings, mass shootings are symbolic of the masses taking the thing, the mark of the Antichrist. Because the things that come out of guns and go into people are symbolic of the things that come out of things and go into people. The 44th president will enforce the mark of the Antichrist. Those who take it will be demonically possessed after the demons cross over the bridge. That's why it was 4 times 4 deaths, because it's the 44th president who will preside over this period of demonic possession of those who have taken the mark of the Antichrist. And whose power will come from demons. You'll see. This will happen in 2029. When Pope Francis, first of all, is resurrected from the dead in the 4th month of the year, April. Now, Rivers threw his 422nd touchdown pass in the 42nd state. Confirmation of the prophetic relevance here. With Colts at 4 times 4 points, the 44-year-old who was wearing the 4th super prime number jersey made his final throw of the game. Because he's wearing number 17. 17 is the 7th prime number, and 7 is the 4th prime number. Okay, so the 44-year-old was wearing the 4th super prime number, and his final, and it was and his team had 4 times 4 points when he made his final throw of the game, which was intercepted with 4 seconds remaining in the 4th quarter by player number 4+4, whose name is Kobe Bryant. The Seahawks won the game with 6+6+6 points in the 42nd state. The Antichrist, 666, 42 months in Bible prophecy. Okay, this is 18 points, and the Omaha Colts quarterback wore number 18. Rivers' 10 children also hints at Michelle Obama on the river on Nissan 10. Right? Rivers, 10 children on the river on the 10th of Nisan, which again was the date that the Israelites crossed over the Jordan River. The game in which the final throw was intercepted by Kobe Bryant was the 63rd prime number of weeks after Kobe Bryant died in a helicopter crash. Seattle is the sister city of Kobe, Japan, which is what Kobe's parents named him after. He arrived for practice on December 9th, exactly the 17th prime number of months after this last game on January 9th, 2021. He wore number 17 in the game. Why is this? Yeah, it's amazing. So not only is it, so his return practice was exactly the 17th prime number of months after his last game. His return game on December 14th, not the practice, but the game, was exactly 1,800 days after his last game. Anyway, so he's wearing number 17, and his return to practice was exactly the 17th prime number of months, which is, by the way, 59 months. The flooding in Seattle was the result of an atmospheric river. Okay, so what's this referring to is that at the time of the game, during this weekend, there was deadly and destructive flooding in Seattle because of a flooded river. It was Green River, and it was the result of what's called an atmospheric river. And this is the comeback of Philip Rivers in Seattle. Do you see? This is amazing, right? If you think that this is not from God, what can I tell you? I'm just scratching the surface. I'm going to explain so much more here regarding why this coincidence here. There's a lot going on here, actually. But I just want to even just say that this is enough. How do you have Rivers return on the day of destructive river in the city because of an atmospheric river? And everything else that I've explained, like King County, 44-year-old, 44th president, Antichrist king, right? Kobe Bryant was born the 42nd super prime number of weeks after Kobe Bryant. That's amazing. So this player that intercepted the last throw was born an exact number of weeks after Kobe Bryant died in a helicopter crash, but it's the 42nd super prime number of weeks. And again, Kobe Bryant plays for the team from the 42nd state. Kobe Bryant was born 162 super prime number of days after Kobe Bryant. August 23rd, 2020 was the 42nd birthday of Kobe Bryant. On that day, it was announced that there were 230,000 deaths from the CVD disease and 44 new cases in the last 24 hours, making this a pairing of 23 and 44, which I've already explained in this video. These are the building blocks of God's science. On the day, the Towers Bridge in London got stuck, symbolic of the 9/11 towers. They are twin towers, this Towers Bridge. David Blaine, who was born on the date that the Twin Towers officially opened, and he was born in New York City, and he famously held his breath for just over 17 minutes underwater on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and the two planes struck the Twin Towers, 17 minutes apart. Anyway, David Blaine hung from the Towers Bridge in London for 44 days. On the day of the 44,000 new cases in 24 hours and the 230,000 deaths. Well, no, he didn't hang on that day, sorry. That was the Tower Bridge got stuck on that date. That was the news story. But that hinted at David Blaine. And David Blaine hung there next to Potter's Field also, which is biblical. And this was 9 years after the DC quake, exactly. So that, because God pairs 9 and 23 and 9 and 44. The 44th president was inaugurated in 2009, and he wore number 23 in high school basketball. Kobe, Japan earthquake. Okay. Wow. The Kobe, Japan earthquake was 11,230 days to the river signs in Seattle, the sister city of Kobe, the flooded river. And the last play being intercepted by Kobe Bryant, as in Kobe Bryant, who's named after Kobe, Japan. So this famous earthquake, right? This big earthquake in Kobe, Japan. But this is an astounding connection because God frequently uses the number 1123 because it is the 188th prime number. And H188 in the Hebrew concordance is the word for woe exclamation mark, used in the Bible in the context of extreme judgment from God. January 17th, 1995. Let's see, that's the Kobe earthquake date. It was a 6.9, and it was 63 months exactly after the World Series earthquake in San Francisco, which was also a 6.9. 63 hints at 3 6s and 666. The number of the Antichrist, Pope Francis, which is hinted at with San Francisco. 69 hints at the period of the Antichrist, which comes after the 69th week in the most central prophecy in the Bible. This Antichrist, Pope Francis, visited Japan, and that was prophetic. He went and visited the memorial for the hidden Christians, because for centuries the Christians were in hiding in Nagasaki because of persecution, which was symbolic of the Antichrist in Rome persecuting true Christians. Because it comes full circle, because Rome persecuted true Christians at the beginning of the church age. And anyway, he visited the Hidden Christians Memorial exactly 666 days after the Hidden Christians sites were officially recognized as World Heritage Sites. That's right. That's right. The UN, UNESCO, recognized these sites in January, I think it was 31st of 2018, exactly 666 days before Pope Francis was in Nagasaki, visiting the Hidden Christians Memorial. If that doesn't identify the Antichrist, I don't know what does. Anyway, the reason why he was in Japan, besides this sign that I just mentioned, is that his two big things that he was promoting was environmentalism, anti-climate change nonsense, hoax, lies from Satan, and also he was big on anti-nuclear weapons. He was big on eliminating nuclear weapons. And these are the two things that the aliens, or rather I should say the demons pretending to be aliens, will come and claim to be helping us with, to be here to help us with, to get past this supposed juncture in human history so that we can, evolve and then colonize the stars, etc., just like the aliens, etc. Anyway, they'll claim to be here to help us with nuclear weapons and environment and climate change. The two big lies that the Antichrist, Pope Francis, promoted. The discovery of the lion's roar solar flare on a star 4 times 4 million light years away was made by astronomers in Kyoto. Kyoto and Kobe are part of the same urban area with Osaka. And it was published on July 10th, 2020. Why is July 10th, 2020 1978 days before Rivers arrived for practice on December 9th. Because Kobe was born in 1978. Well, the reason is because this is relevant. So Kobe was named by his parents after Kobe, Japan, in 1978. And this observatory and astronomers near Kobe, Japan, published this study about the super flare. Do I describe it here? It was the largest. It's like this unprecedented super flare that they didn't think was possible prior to its detection, but it emanated from the star in the neck of the constellation Leo, which is why it's dubbed by the media as the lion's roar. But in the Bible, in Bible prophecy, Jesus comes from the tribe of Judah, which is symbolized by the lion. And he is the lion. For example, in Isaiah chapter 31. Now, the beast quake in Seattle was 54 days to this river flooding in Seattle. And Gabby Giffords was also shot in the head on that day, the congresswoman. There's lots to this. I don't know if we're going to expand on it. I think we are. So in the shooting, in the Strip Plaza in Tucson, Arizona, where I used to live at the time. I wasn't actually in Tucson at the time, though. But I was away for a bit. Anyway, Taylor Green was killed in the shooting. She was the granddaughter of the famous Philadelphia Phillies head coach, Dallas Green. And this Taylor Green girl, was born on the date 9/11 in 2001. She was born on 9/11. The river that flooded was Green River. I'm not quite sure yet the meaning of the 54 days, or rather I forget. Okay, so let's just find out. 54 is 6 times 9. The Kobe and World Series earthquakes were 6.9. Creedence Clearwater Revival has a song and album named Green River. The album also contains the apocalyptic song Bad Moon Rising. The album Green River was released on August 7th, 1969. Do you see anything in the fact that the lion's roar on July 10th was 160 days after Kobe Bryant's crash? So a bad moon rising is like a new moon. And at this time of the video, this email, I should say, God was pointing to this date, December 19th. And then we received the massive flow of prophetic signs that we expected. But that's just the subject of another video. Rivers hints at Creedence Clearwater Revival. Creedence Clearwater Revival equals 24, right? Because C equals 18 and, C equals 3 and R equals 18. Add them up, 24, the jersey number of Kobe. Don't worry, we're gonna make all this more clear. We're gonna delete that, forget that. But there's more coming regarding the connection between Green River and Creedence Clearwater Revival. Okay? Now, Oh, there was a famous serial killer, the Green River Killer. Okay. Whose name is Gary Ridgway. Same initials, actually. Wait a second. The bad moon rising is correct. December 14th, 2025 was the 4 times 4th prime number of years after the America's departure from the moon. There you go. So the connection to the bad moon rising connects to this ultimate moon sign, America's last departure from the moon, which is symbolic of America's departure from Christ. The last American stepped off of the moon on this date. The word that means to step off in Greek, in the Greek concordance of the Bible, is G576. And the FDA approved the SHOT exactly 576 months after the last American stepped off of the moon. There's lots more to that, actually, but I'm not going to go any further. Rivers wore number 17 because Kobe was born 17 years after Obama. But also, this points to the 1700 Cascadia earthquake in the year 1700. Exactly 320 years before Kobe Bryant died in a helicopter crash. Because 32 is equal to Obama in simple English gematria. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. And also Obama will serve more than 2 terms, just like the 32nd president. So, again, Seattle is the sister city of Kobe. The Cascadia earthquake hit Seattle, right? That's the Pacific Northwest. There was the famous, because of research, because of records, massive Cascadia earthquake and tsunami on January 26th in the year 1700. Exactly 320 years before Kobe Bryant died on the West Coast in a helicopter crash, when he crashed into a mountain. And so he wore number 17. Rivers did. Played in this city here in his return, because it hints at the return of Obama, whose number is 32. But anyway, Kobe was born 17 years after Obama. And it's like almost exactly 17 years, because they were both born in August. Actually, I'll probably get to it later, because they were born the 4th plus 4th prime number of days apart. They were born 19 days apart. 19 is the 4 plus 4th prime number. And we're talking about the birth of the 44th president. And also, 44 pairs with the number 17 in God's signs, to confirm the signs and connections. Wow. December 14th was 17 days after the 2 guards were shot on 17th Street. And the Pope departed for 2 nations for the 1700th anniversary of the Nicene Creed in Turkey. So that's amazing. Okay. And as in the Nicene Creed, as in credence, Clearwater Revival, as in Green River album with Bad Moon Rising. This day being the anniversary of the moon connecting with the 4 times 4 number of years. Do you see? So Rivers, number 17, played his comeback game next to Green River 17 days after the 2 guard were shot on 17th Street on the day that the Pope departed for 2 nations for the 1700th Nicene Creed, and we were talking about this connection to the Cascadia earthquake in the year 1700. In other words, also the 1700th anniversary of the Nicene Creed, God is using here to point to the earthquake, the Cascadia earthquake in 1700. All of this is ultimately pointing to God communicating how there's going to be another Cascadia earthquake soon. Obviously, that's what God is communicating here, right? He even connected the Green River Bad Moon Rising, Credence Clearwater Revival. This is amazing. That's why there's so many exclamation marks here. Kobe, whose name God has used to hint at COVID, because he died right at the beginning of the CVD disease period. But his name, when spoken in Hebrew, sounds like COVID. That's the other thing about the name Kobe. Now, he died on January 26th, exactly 131 months to December 26, 2030. And that's the day of the predicted asteroid that will trigger tsunamis and, I guess, possibly the Cascadia earthquake that's coming. But this is relevant, the 131 months, because Kobe hints at COVID. And G131 in the Greek concordance is the word that means blood disease, which is what a person gets when they take the CVD SHOT. The year 2030 hints at 2-shot guard by the man who was in the 03 unit in Afghanistan. That was the name of the unit of the Afghanis with the CIA, 03 unit. He shot 2 guards. He was with the 03 unit. That hints at 2030. This also hints at the 2-nation trip to third world nations, because the day that the Pope made his first trip abroad, the first American Pope, to 2 nations, was also the day that Trump trumpeted ending asylum or visas for people from third world nations, which gives us another 2 and 3, which confirms the connection to the year 2030 here through all of this. Because all of this points back to Kobe, because again, Rivers' last throw in the game was intercepted by player number 4+4, Kobe Bryant. And we established how this other Kobe Bryant connects to the Kobe Bryant. We established that earlier. So you see how amazing all of this is. Do you think that I came up with this all on my own? Of course not. So when the prediction comes to pass, it'll prove everything that's being said in this video. And primarily, the controversial things that I'm saying in this video, which is the purpose of this video and prediction from God. And believe me, I know far better than you or anyone the reason and purpose for this prediction that is from God. And it is to prove the controversial things that I am saying. Case closed. There is no debate, period. No discussion at all regarding the controversial things that I am saying. For example, the identities of the Antichrist. If you don't appreciate this, you are completely wasting your time. Turn off the video now. You can do something else. Okay? This isn't for entertainment. The reason for this prediction that is from God is not for you to go, oh, cool, you were able to predict that ahead of time. That's pretty neat. No. The reason why God has given me a voice and the authority here in this video through this prediction is to prove to you the controversial things that I'm saying. Make no mistake. Do not misinterpret what I'm saying here. I don't know how to be any more clear. Also, the connection between the year 1700 tsunami and Kobe pairs with 17 and 9. Pairs the numbers 17 and 9, which God pairs together to confirm the signs and connections. As I explained earlier, this is how the true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works, which is only being explained on this channel. The number 9 and 17 are paired because the Antichrist was inaugurated in 09 and was the president until till 17. That's one reason for pairing 9 and 17. And Kobe's flight in the helicopter departed at 9 a.m. and killed 9 people. It was on the West Coast. So we have the year 1700 connected with Kobe, whose death gives us the number 9. Again, the 1700 Cascadia earthquake tsunami was exactly 320 years before Kobe Bryant's crash. So 1700 connects to the crash of 9 deaths in a flight that departed at 9 a.m. The quake in 1700 was at 9 p.m. Pacific time. That's more confirmation. That's amazing. That's amazing. So you have the 9 a.m. and the 9 p.m. connection here at both ends of this connection. The Seattle sister city of Kobe hints at the Kobe quake, which hints at the Cascadia quake in 1700, which hints at Kobe's death date, January 26th, 2020. The Beast quake. Okay, so the Beast quake in Seattle, which was during a playoff game in which the player nicknamed the Beast broke 9 tackles in a play called Power 17. Speaking of pairings of 9 and 17. The Beast Quake player wore jersey number 24, and so did Kobe Bryant. That's amazing. You see I've connected all of this here now? Not me, God has connected all of this, right? Again, we've established Kobe through Seattle, through the Kobe Bryant player, Rivers, play, sister city, Kobe, Japan, right? The Beast Quake, which was a prophetic sign, when asked for the signs to look for of his return, when the disciples asked, Jesus replied with earthquake signs. This was a beast quake. The beast in the Bible is a metaphor for the Antichrist. The Beast Quake player's number was 24, as was Kobe Bryant's. So this is a lyric from the song Bad Moon Rising. I feel a river's overflowing. This is the 10th lyric of the Bad Moon Rising song. Rivers has 10 children. And again, he played in Seattle next to the Green River when it was overflowing. That's amazing. That's amazing, right? The reason why river, and again, the album is Green River, right? The 10th lyric of Bad Moon Rising, because Rivers had 10 children, has 10 children. Bad Moon Rising was released in the year 69. Kobe and the World Series earthquake were 6.9. The Beast Quake on the day of the Taylor Green, Gabby Gifford shooting was 54 days, 54 6 times 9, to December 14th, 2025, when the flooding overflowed the Green River. The name of the album for Bad Moon Rising. The All-Star Game in Seattle on the day of the Vermont flooding. Vermont means Green Mountain in French. Was 888 days before December 14th. The logo for the game had Mount Rainier in it. Does Reiner hint at Rainier? So this was the day also that Rob Reiner was murdered. We're going to get into some more stuff here, right? This connection to, so God is ultimately also pointing to Mount Rainier through all of this, including through the death of Reiner on this same day, which was also the day of the Bondi Beach shooting. Stay tuned. So we have anyway this All-Star Game in Seattle in 2023, but it was the same day as the Vermont flooding in the capital city of Vermont. And Seattle is in the evergreen state. Ver means green. Vert means green in French. And we're talking about the Green River that overflowed in the evergreen state. The logo for the All-Star Game was green, and it included Mount Rainier in the logo. 888 because Kobe Bryant, number 24, is 8 plus 8 plus 8. And also the name Jesus in Greek is equal to 888 in Greek gematria. And the All-Star Game was a Jesus sign because the MVP was Elijah Diaz, as in Days of Elijah, the song. Anyway, there's more to that, but that's another story. Now, the Vermont flooding in the capital city was on July 11th, as was the All-Star Game. That's the verse in the book of Genesis, chapter 7, verse 11, in which the flood began. And we were talking about the flooding in Vermont, and also its connection to the flooding of the Green River on the day that Rivers returned to the NFL. Rob Reiner, as in RR, R is the 18th letter, Omaha quarterback, and Seattle scored 18 points in the game. That was 1,800 days exactly after Rivers' last game. So I think Seattle scored 18 points in this game. The guy was the returned quarterback. The guy who returned to play the quarterback played for the team that's famous for the quarterback that wore number 18, Peyton Manning. Anyway, the 18 points that Seattle scored was exactly 1,800 days after Rivers' last game. Now, Reiner equals 69 in simple English gematria. Green River, Bad Moon Rising was released in the year 69. Rainier equals 444 in English gematria. The 44-year-old last pass was intercepted. The 44-year-old's last pass of the game was intercepted by Kobe Bryant, player number 4+4, with 4 seconds remaining in the fourth quarter. The Colts at the time had 4 times 4 points. And again, it was the 4 times 4th prime number of years after the departure from the moon and return to Earth. The comeback return of the 44th president is hinted at because, again, the 44-year-old made a comeback to the NFL. Therefore, Rainier could be pointed to here. Yes, Rainier is being pointed to here. Mount Rainier. So the movie Stand By Me was directed by Rob Reiner, and it starred famous actor River Phoenix. The movie Stand By Me was adapted from The Body, written by Stephen King. In King County, the Green River overflowed near Mount Rainier. And Reiner directed the movie Stand By Me, written by Stephen King, starring River Phoenix. And he died on the same day as the Green River overflowed. The movie starring River Phoenix cost $4 plus $4 million. Philip Rivers is 44 years old. Kiefer Sutherland is the gang leader in Stand By Me. River Phoenix was born exactly 4 plus 4 years before Kobe Bryant. That's amazing. It's all come full circle, right? The 44-year-old connected with Seattle through the player Kobe Bryant, and Kobe Bryant. Oh, you know what? Kobe Bryant's other jersey number was number 8. That's right. Wow. And that was the player's number in the game, too, that caught the last pass of that 44-year-old returned player. Well, anyway, River Phoenix was born exactly 4 plus 4 years before Kobe Bryant, which, as I'm explaining here, connects with the Green River in Seattle, the sister city of Kobe, Japan. Wow. River's sister's name is Rain. And this is relevant because of the relationship they had. It was a special thing here. So Phoenix River's sister's name is Rain, as in the rain that caused the river to overflow, the Green River. And the flooding in Vermont and all that. She and her brother started out as singer and guitarist. They were a duo of performers. That's how they started out. Rain later collaborated with REM on a 1994 album named Monster that is dedicated to River Phoenix. River died after a night out with Rain at a club named the Viper Room. At the time, River was on a break from filming Dark Blood. Okay, so the mark of the Antichrist, which is what's being pointed to here, is in fact snake venom, the protruding amino acid chain that was attached to the bat virus, the chimera, lab-produced thing here. The protruding, you know what I'm talking about, right? The SPIKE, the protruding amino acid chain, is in fact snake venom. They had been studying for decades the use of snake venom in pharmacology. And so was the mark of the Antichrist, obviously, because that was all what it was all about, right? The supposed so-called, quote, MR ends with an NAVACCI, anything, was also amino acid chains, protruding amino acid chains, which was snake venom. By the way, this is exactly why all of the symptoms for the CVD disease, which were confusing to doctors, was consistent with a snake bite, which is why it was confusing to them, because they were looking for a respiratory virus. Now, the movie Dark Blood was shown 3 times to private audiences at film festivals, 19 years after its filming in 1993. This movie, starring River Phoenix, and River Phoenix died during the making of this movie. It was first shown on September 27th, 2012, exactly 19 years before the Day of Atonement, on September 27th, 2031. So, what we have here is a connection from the movie Dark Blood and 19 years to when it was finally shown in film festivals. which was in turn, or is in turn, 19 years before the Day of Atonement. And what are we talking about? The Viper Room and Dark Blood at River Phoenix. The mark of the Antichrist. Because the Day of Atonement in 2031 is the date on which the Antichrists will be defeated. They'll be enforcing the mark of the Antichrist, which is snake venom, which affects people's blood in a dark, evil way. Now, 19 is also the 4 plus 4th prime number. And Kobe Bryant wore jersey number 4 plus 4. Number 8. It is the only film in which River is the villain. Okay, that's a thing. That's a thing. It stands out because it's the only one in which he is a villain. Dark Blood was released on DVD on January 26th, 2018. 8 plus 8 plus 8 months exactly before the death of Kobe Bryant, who wore number 8 plus 8 plus 8 and also number 8. In the movie, River Phoenix is 1/8 Hopi Native Indian and is waiting for the end of the world. River's character is infatuated with a woman named Buffy and rapes her. River's character dies from a head wound. And that's because those who take the mark, which is snake venom, into their blood will have the components reach to their head, their brain, which will then act as transistors for the frequencies that will then facilitate delta brainwaves and demonic possession. This is why prophetically here, River's character dies from a head wound. Philadelphia Van Trump was the first to ascend Mount Rainier. Rainier is the most glaciated peak in the contiguous U.S. and it feeds 5 rivers. December 14th is 5 days before December 19th, which was the date of the predicted injury of Paul Simon's head. We just talked about the head injury here. Now, December 14th and 15th were 888 days after the flooding in Vermont and the All-Star game. So Kiefer Sutherland was the gang leader in Stand By Me, which also starred Corey Feldman, and they both starred in The Lost Boys. The Lost Boys is a movie God is using as well. It's a vampire movie. It hints at immortality that will be promised through the mark of the Antichrist that changes people's blood. Vampires, of course, drink blood. The Lost Boys came out 11 months and 9 days after Stand By Me. The demonic possession is described in Bible prophecy, symbolized by Revelation 9:11. River Phoenix reportedly passed away 17 days after Charlie Kirk was born, and 17 months before Selena Quintilla was reportedly murdered. Also 6 months, 3 years, 6 years, 3 months after The Lost Boys was released. Castle Rock Entertainment is a production company founded by Rob Reiner. Castle Rock is a fictional city used in many Stephen King novels, including The Body, which inspired the movie Stand By Me, directed by Rob Reiner. In both movies are iconic scenes involving jumping from a bridge. That's because the demons will cross the bridge from the bottomless pit, demonic realm, into the earthly realm. This is similar to the parallel between the two movies A View to a Kill and Annie Hall, with iconic scenes of bridges and falls into the ocean. That's explained in another video. King's The Shining was published 9 days after Simon sang about Apollo moon mission on the date 119, because King Apollyon is mentioned in Revelation 9:11. Rivers War 17, this Philip Rivers quarterback guy, 17 days after Pope Leo flew to commemorate on his first trip abroad, the 1700th anniversary of the Nicene Creed, on the same day of the shots on 17th Street. Kirk was shot, and he was born 17 days before River died. River Phoenix. Rivers, number 17, arrived at practice in his comeback 90 days after Kirk was shot. This is a pairing of 9 and 17 that hints at Obama's comeback because he was the president from 09 till 17. Again, Rivers was 44 years old. The last play of the game here, with 4 seconds remaining in the fourth quarter, was intercepted by player number 4+4 when they had 4 times 4 points at the time. The story is that the son, Nick Reiner, got into a heated argument with his father, Rob Reiner, at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party. This hints at the Nicolaitan doctrine of worldly, as in party, Christians, because of Nick Reiner. And the Nicolaitan doctrine of our day is cheap grace and free grace, which comes in the package of dispensationalism, and its close cousin, Reformed theology, or sovereign grace, which comes in the package of Calvinism. This is the Nicolaitan doctrine of our day that Jesus said he hates, and is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth and those that teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine. And believe me, I know far better than you the reason and purpose for this prediction that is from God, and it is to prove the controversial things that I am saying, including what I've just said. There is no debate at all, and I don't care to elaborate anymore. If you are a Christian, the most important video for you on this channel is the 23 church signs video. So make sure you watch that video for more information. And if you are of the ilk that believe that doctrine is not very relevant, I just love Jesus, well, you couldn't be more wrong. So Elias Diaz is Venezuelan. He was the MVP in the All-Star game. He was the prophetic sign of the game. It's just interesting that he's Venezuelan because at this time there's these Venezuelan signs, and I'm probably guessing that it connects somehow to the topic of this video here. We'll see. The reason why the 44-year-old Rivers made his comeback playing for the Colts in the game in the Evergreen State when the Green River was overflowing is that the 4th horse of the apocalypse is green. The Colts quarterback last throw of the game was intercepted by player number 4+4 with 4 seconds remaining in the fourth quarter. It's all pointing to the 4th horse, the green horse. That's why Rivers playing for the Colts next to the Green River. Because Colts is a name for a horse. The interception was made by Kobe Bryant, player number 8 in Seattle, exactly 888 days after the Major League Baseball All-Star game in Seattle. The MVP of the game was Elias Diaz, as in Days of Elijah, the most famous song, if you will, in church service, who, at the age of 32, was playing in his first ever All-Star game, which is highly unusual at the age of 32. He was the hero of the game when he hit the game-winning home run, making the score 3-2, and he was 32 years old. The All-Star game in Seattle in the Evergreen State near Mount Rainier was played on the day of the record flooding in Vermont, as in Green Mountain. This is because Kobe Bryant's death on a mountain on the West Coast on January 26, 2020 was exactly 320 years after the Cascadia earthquake. So you see that? The Cascadia earthquake was pointed to with the 32-year-old MVP of the game who made the score 3-2 because the Cascadia earthquake was 320 years exactly before Kobe Bryant's death on the mountain, as in Green Mountain. That's amazing. Now, the reason why 44-year-old Rivers made his comeback playing for the Colts in the game in the Evergreen State when the Green River was overflowing is that the fourth horse of the apocalypse is green. The Colts quarterback's last throw of the game was intercepted by player number 4+4 with 4 seconds remaining in the fourth quarter. Green horse equals plague. That's what the green horse is about in the prophecy. And the plague is about the injections to counter the so-called plague. And the Space Needle hints at this because this thing that is the injection is transhumanism technology. That's what is hinted at with space. And its needle, also it's a tower, which hints at the Tower of Babel, which attempted to reach heaven without God, which is what the transhumanism technology, needles, is attempting to do through attempting to reverse aging and achieve immortality without God. And anyway, the Space Needle is in King County, the 42nd state, in Evergreen State, next to Green River. The King Elvis died at 42 years old because of King County in the 42nd state. The Cascadia and the King Antichrist, whose rule will be for 42 months in Bible prophecy. Symbolic 42 months. It's only symbolism. There's no official beginning date to be looking for. Well, there might be something symbolic 42 months exactly before the Day of Atonement in 2031. But anyway, expect for it to only be symbolic. In other words, a prophetic sign. Not this thing that all quote-unquote Christians will recognize and go, oh, now we know who the Antichrist is. Right? The Cascadia earthquake connection is so amazing. Yeah, okay. Elias Diaz was the hero who propelled the National League team to their first All-Star game win in 11 years, ending a 9 All-Star game streak of losses for the National League. This hints at Revelation 9:11 and King Apollyon, which is hinted at with King County in the 42nd state, which is where the game was played, where the streak was ended after 9 All-Star games and 11 years. The reason why there's a discrepancy is because of the strike year when there was no All-Star game, which is designed by God to produce this very sign you're talking about, right? Think about that. That's how it works. The year of the strike, in which there was no All-Star game, produces this, which is important. This was in the news stories, right? I didn't just make this up. This was part of the mainstream sports news story regarding this All-Star game. National League wins, first time in 11 years. That was like the headline, right? But it all pointed to Revelation 9:11. Because of King Apollyon, King County, like I said. This email thread is important, and I recommend, Okay. Rivers arrived for practice on December 9th, exactly the 17th prime number of months after his last game, on January 9th, and he wore number 17 in the game. Okay, so this is all, I've done all this already. I condensed it all into a proper email. Okay. Okay, so we have this story here. Gavin Newsom, the 40th governor of California, and the flood lasted in the Bible for 40 days, proclaimed a state of emergency because of flooding caused by atmospheric rivers on December 24th, the same day as the final episode of the atmospheric signal show. So there's this new show in which the plot is about an atmospheric signal which hypnotizes people and turns them into some kind of collective cyborg alien race. It's the new show by Vince Gilligan, creator of Breaking Bad. Anyway, the governor declared a state of emergency due to flooding caused by atmospheric rivers on December 24th, and this was 10 days after the player named Rivers, who is known for having 10 kids, played his big comeback game next to the flooded Green River. The state of emergency was for 2 times 3 counties, and this pairs with Rivers' age of 44, because God pairs 23 and 44. And the 40 times 4 points his team had before his final throw was intercepted by player number 4+4 with 4 seconds to go in the fourth quarter. Reiner died on Washington's birthday. He died on the day of the prophetic Rivers game in Washington when the Green River flooded. Reiner starred in Sleepless in Seattle with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. He also starred in Joe versus the Volcano. The name Reiner is hinting at Rainier Volcano. See how this all comes together here now with Reiner? We talked about the connections with Reiner also earlier with Phoenix River, or River Phoenix, I should say, connected to the Green River, etc. The day he died was the Green River Day. But he was also in the movie Sleepless in Seattle, which is where the Green River is. And he died on Washington's birthday. The Green River is in Washington State, as is Mount Rainier. But that movie starred Hanks and Ryan, and they also starred in another romantic comedy, Joe versus the Volcano, along with Reiner. And Reiner hints at the Rainier Volcano. So this is, in other words, this is the true reason, the real reason, the prophetic reason for the death of Rob Reiner, which you won't hear anywhere else. Now, I'm not saying that I know everything. There may be something out there about Reiner that's prophetic that I'm not aware of course. But this is what really God is using Reiner for. And there may be others that have recognized the connection to Rainier, but they don't know about the connection through the Philip Rivers player, etc. Well, maybe they know that too. I have no idea. Anyway, you get my point. The big picture of signs is being explained in this video here, is my point. Rivers' last game was on the day that Bridget Bardot died. The Rivers signs overlap with the Bardot signs in the Bardot email, which I think I'll make into part 2, because they overlap. This isn't just like how can you describe and explain God's big picture of signs when it's an interconnected web? If you try to explain one part of the web, you end up inevitably pulling the entire web. So, and it's not linear. You can't explain it in a linear fashion. So, I mean, you have to try, but that's not how it works. It's 3-dimensional. So how do you explain something that's three-dimensional? Anyway, the Colts-Panthers game, this final game with Rivers, Rivers, that was the comeback game was in Seattle. But Rivers played 3 games, and the third one was against the Panthers on December 28th. The score added up to 40, which hints at the flood. 40 days of the flood. The game was in Indianapolis. And again, Rivers is tied with the flood because of the Green River flooding. The game was in Indianapolis. Number 17's team scored 17 points in the game 17 days after he returned on the 9th of the month. That's a pairing of 9 and 17. That confirms the signs and connections. Number 17's team scored 17 points 17 days after he returned, and this was 90 weeks after the eclipse over Indianapolis. Another pairing of 9 and 17, but of course the eclipse is an extremely important prophetic sign, and here we have this clear 9 and 17 pairing connecting it to this football game in Indianapolis, over which went the eclipse exactly 90 weeks earlier. And also the number 9 is the most important number in God's signs, as from the Bible it symbolizes God's judgment. So in other words, what I'm saying is that this final game of Phillip Rivers on December 28th is extremely important, that was played in Indianapolis. The Colts and number 17 scored 17 points against the team from the 9 plus 9 plus 9th state 90 weeks after the eclipse. The sum of the score was 20 plus 20, which hints at 22, which is the number that symbolizes the mark of the Antichrist. The inverse of the mark of the Antichrist, described in the book of Ezekiel, would have been a Tav mark. A Tav is the last and 22nd letter of the Hebrew alphabet. The mark of the Antichrist is described in the last and 22nd book out of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. Also, the mark of the Antichrist changes a person's chromosomes, which come in pairs, and each chromosome has 2 arms, and so 2 and 2. And again, this is 90 weeks after the eclipse that engendered a Tav mark over the U.S., a pairing of 9 and 22. Ezekiel chapter 9, the Tav mark in Ezekiel chapter 9 being number 22. So God pairs 9 and 22 as well. God pairs a lot of numbers with the number 9, because again, like I said, the number 9 is the most important number in God's signs. It's from the Bible. It symbolizes God's judgment. Rivers returned. G390 in the Greek concordance is the word return. The Apostle James used it when he quoted Amos 9:11, as in the return of the Lord to rebuild the temple. Rivers' third loss in Indianapolis was 90 weeks after the eclipse over Indianapolis, as in 390, return of the Lord. Amazing. Jacksonville Jaguars hints at big cat. Jacksonville is named after the 7th president, President Jackson. Daniel chapter 7 includes a big cat, which is what is hinted at with Jacksonville, 7th president, Jaguars, big cat. Daniel 7:6. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. 4 wings and 4 heads hints at 44. Rivers returned at the age of 44. And he played this team that hints at the 44 number in the big cat in Daniel 7. The 44th president will return. And through this, through President Jackson, In this prophecy, God pointed to the 44th president who will return, as did the 44-year-old who played the Jacksonville, as in President Jackson, the 7th president, and the Jaguars, the big cat, as in Daniel 7, involving the big cat, which gives us 4 wings and 4 heads, as in 44. The total score of the game was 40 points, and the game itself with the team hinted at 4 wings and 4 heads. Number 17 and his team's 17 points, 17 days after he returned, hints at the 17-year-old who was the pretext for Kristallnacht. The assassination was in Paris, France. Brigitte Bardot and Emmanuel Macron's statements, Brigitte Bardot's death and Emmanuel Macron's statements on the day hint at the assassination in Paris. As well, the name Palance hints at Paris. So I'm getting into stuff that you're not really appreciating because it's explained in the other video. So why don't I just leave this out for part 2? The reason I guess it's in the same email here is because this is a continuation of what we're just talking about. Maybe. The return of the 44-year-old ended on December 28th with a game against the Jaguars, 4-4. On the day that Brigitte Bardot died, exactly 4 times 40 weeks, inclusive count before the 44th president is predicted to return to the White House on 4 times 400 Pennsylvania Avenue. Brigitte Bardot connects through contempt with Jack Palance, who was born in Pennsylvania. Anyway, this will all make more sense because Bardot and Jack Palance started a movie together, Contempt. Okay. Anyway, August 4th, 2021, the 44th president's 60th birthday, when there was a 6.0 earthquake at the 32nd Olympics, Obama equals 32 in simple English gematria. That day was 440% of a year, as in 44, to December 28th. And this game involving the 44-year-old and his return against the team that hints at 4 wings and 4 heads. In turn, December 28th is 4 times 40 weeks to the return of the 44th president. All right, we are done here. I think we are done for this part 1. I'm going to split it up into 3 parts, I think. If not, I'll just continue on from here. God bless. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or 2 that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Do not listen to or follow the example of most quote-unquote Christians. Instead, follow the teachings of Jesus, which most quote-unquote Christians ignore. Like Jesus, you must surrender your life. Put nothing ahead of Jesus, your Lord. Like Jesus, you must lay down your life so that you may live. As Jesus said, one must die first, like a kernel of wheat going into the ground, in order to then grow and produce fruit. And like Jesus said, one must produce fruit, or else like a branch or a tree not producing fruit, they will be thrown into the fire. Jesus was speaking to quote-unquote Christians when he said this. One must die the self in order to be born again. And like Jesus said, one must be born again to enter the kingdom. Like Jesus, you must sacrifice your life for the sake of the coming kingdom. It means to do work that involves some form of sacrifice and risk. To have faith does not mean to intellectually agree. You need to demonstrate your faith through taking action. To have faith means to trust in God's promises. Taking action demonstrates trust and fear of the Lord. The primary reason that the wrath of God is coming upon America is quote-unquote Christians that do not get what I have just explained. The only reason a Christian is alive is in order to help other people become Christians and make it to the kingdom. Do not be deceived by those on the political left claiming to be quote-unquote Christians. There is no such thing as a Christian on today's political progressive left. Jesus said, "Do not think I have come to abolish or change any bit of the law or the prophets of the Old Testament Bible." In other words, the God of the Old Testament Bible is the exact same God of the New Testament Bible. It is essential that you learn about the God of the Bible and his ways. The God of the Old Testament Bible is looking to see who will fear him, and to fear God is not the same thing as quote-unquote revering or honoring God. Through Christ's ransom payment, a Christian is someone who has been redeemed and freed from slavery to sin and Satan. In response, a true Christian recognizes that their life in this world does not belong to them, and they become a willing slave to Jesus for the sake of the kingdom. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. And don't only put the link to this video or another video on this channel in comments sections of places you typically visit, but importantly, put the link to the video in places you never visit, where people who don't think like you visit. If you are a quote-unquote Christian, nothing in terms of an evangelism tool compares to this video with its prediction. It is a massive bag of gold. Beware of Jesus' warning through the quote-unquote Christian that did nothing with his bag of gold and was banished to hell. Also, read Ezekiel chapter 3 and 33 for this same warning. If you think you might be spending too much time watching videos instead of working and sacrificing for the kingdom through handing out flyers and potentially helping hundreds of people in the same length of time as a video, my flyer is filled with amazing information that people need to know right now, and it points people to the video channel. Now is not the time to be handing out typical evangelical tracts that are largely based in error anyway, such as, quote, Jesus loves you, unquote, for example. You can hand out the flyer on busy street corners, put them on car windshields in busy parking lots, and put them in mailboxes. Just send the file to your local print shop. You can download the file from the website. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, asteroidprediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the Odyssey.com or Rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.